We're grateful for who God is. That list of names given, holy and mighty and all of that, that's just the beginning of things. When Jesus was jousting with the Pharisees, Jesus made it clear to them that when you start talking about me, you're talking about something that surpasses Abraham. Because before Abraham was, he said, my name is I am. In other words, when you open up the book to look at all of the good things that a person can possibly be, mighty and triumphant and awesome and holy, he says that that's just the beginning of it. He had to close the book.
Who I am, America. My name is Brister Hay IV, born in Brooklyn, New York in the year of 1988. My mother, Jennifer Milhouse Hay, and to my father, Brister Hay III. Who I am, America. Ever since I can remember, I envisioned a life for myself that was grander and bigger than the people around me. And that is not to say that the people around me didn't deserve more. I just dreamed really big. Who I am, America. In 11th grade, I figured out what I was going to do in my life. I was going to be the most famous Black opera singer to ever live. Who I am, America. That drove me all the way to my higher education. I took my undergraduate studies at SUNY Purchase College, and I did my master's studies at Binghamton University, all in classical music. Now, I know what you're thinking. Who are we standing in front of? But the foundations that set this path is unlike anything that you would think. I'm gonna rewind. Who I am, America. In the 6th grade, I remember the hardest conversation I've ever had. My mom sat me down and said, Brister, your father is an alcoholic. It shook me to my core. For one, I wasn't sure what alcoholism was. For two, I just knew that he was a different person than the person I was growing up with for the first 10 years of my life. It hurt. But I had a mom that sustained our home, and she made sure that we was always safe. I had a brother who was my best friend, and in moments when it was the weakest of us, we had each other. And concurrently, by the time I got to my next years in my life, that's when I found music, which I truly believe is the very thing that saved me and got me out of my circumstance. In the 7th and 8th grade, I went to Ronald Elman's Learning Center, which is a specialized junior high school. Now, when they say specialized, they simply mean that you are talented enough to get into a more private education for free. Now, the thing that I found most valuable in my older age is that that very thing removed me away from my circumstance. I'll back up again. Who I am, America. Because I grew up in Bed-Stuy in the 90s, you can imagine I saw a lot of gangs. I saw a lot of violence. And the first thing that removed me from that environment was music. And to this day, I'm forever grateful for the opportunity to expand and learn something different. Who I am, America. From the junior high school years at Ronald Elman Learning Center, it drove me and took me to my high school years at the Professional Performing Arts School, where I found one of the biggest influences of my life, Miss Chantel Wright. Now, why she was much of an influence? She was the first person to tell me that, Brister, you are not where you came from. You are where you want to go. She challenged me to think differently, to be different, and truly figure out who I am and own it. Now, remember, at the same time, concurrently, my dad was still in my home dealing with alcoholism. I remember walking in home sometimes and having physical fights with him. I remember being screamed at. I remember being minimized. But I also remember the very thing that saved me, which was music, and at that time, God. I'm forever grateful for those opportunities and that community that was built by my mentor, Chantel Wright, because it allowed me to be able to hug people when I needed to be held the most. And what it did is give me experiences that showed me that the world is bigger and so much beyond the Brooklyn bubble. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. The Brooklyn bubble is just as similar as the Baltimore bubble or as the Canadian bubble. Wherever you were and you don't recognize that you have a chance to expand, that's your bubble. Music, and it's right, my family and friends gave me an opportunity to burst my bubble. Now, after my education years at SUNY Binghamton, I actually stopped singing. I had what you call vocal nodules, which required me to get vocal surgery, and I could not sing anymore. And it was honestly one of the best things that happened to me. The very thing that saved my life, I became attached to in a way where I couldn't breathe or live without it. But the truth was that once that was snatched away from me, I had an opportunity to learn and be different. Who I am, America. Now, out of that entire chronology that I just sent you, there's one fact that drove me and made me who I am today. I was an obese kid from the time that I can remember. So, my dad was an alcoholic. I was living in Brooklyn in one of the worst crime areas noted in history, and I was an obese kid who had no resources, no education, or no possibility to be different. Obesity followed me throughout my entire young adult life, through junior high school when I started music, to high school when I really found who I was going to be, all the way to my undergraduate studies at SUNY Purchase, and it finally stopped going into my master's program. And here's why. Who I am, America. My dad, who suffered with alcoholism, died at the tender age of 47. He drank himself to his end. When he passed away during going into my senior year in college, I wasn't sure how I felt about it. I knew that we made amends. I knew that I loved him, but I also didn't know what was coming next. Everything that I saw him do, my behavior began to pattern a part of my grief. I thought I was just living, being a college student. But then I recognized I was drinking more than ever. I was eating more than ever. And I blew up to 300 pounds at my size. Now I bet you're wondering, how did this all connect? Well, it does. I was a broke kid living in poverty in a trauma-ridden environment. And I became exactly the thing that I wanted to fight against. After that study, that final year in my undergrad study, after we buried my dad, my brother and I looked at ourselves and we said, can we be different? And we chose to be different. It was the first time I exercised in that summer of 2010, and we lost 100 pounds. I lost 100 pounds in year one. Why is this important? Because when I stopped singing and I couldn't sing anymore, I found fitness. Fitness allowed me to express myself, express my body, and finally change the generational curses that was against me my entire life. What I appreciate the most about the transition from music to fitness was the calling that it did from my inner being. Where singing was my passion and it's something I really enjoyed, it wasn't necessarily who I was. Who I am is one of service. Who I am is one to help. And I couldn't quite find that niche as a singer. As a singer, I had to worry about how I sang. I had to worry about how people perceive me, but not necessarily what I was doing to serve people. Fitness allowed me to find that. So, who I am, America. I guess I would say from the age of birth until my 22-year-old self, after my master's program, I'm one of flexibility, one of change, and a Black man who was able to take his original circumstance and change it to the better good. Who I am, America. Who I am, America. After I finished my master's studies and I found fitness, I would truly say I found it for me. And I didn't even see it as the means to be able to help and serve other people. But as you can imagine, once I lost 120 pounds, I began to get a bunch of questions about, well, what did you do? Well, how did you do it? And of course, can you help me do it? Because of the circles I was in, music, being from Brooklyn and poor neighborhoods, the finding people that lacked a wellness regimen and lacked an exercise regimen wasn't hard. We can assume that most people don't do these things. In fact, the statistic says that most people do not exercise and do not eat well. But I took that intrigue in the inquisition that people gave me to be able to see truly how can I help people the same way I help myself. And I won't say that I was self-made. I had a lot of aid in transforming my body. I used tapes, I used read articles, and I listened to anybody that had, as they would say, the keys to really transforming the body. So after I decided to, hey, let me see how I can do this, I began to get my certifications, and I began to really figure out if I'm going to help people, how can I do it the best way that I can? Position myself for the highest success. So I was working in a hospital, who I am America, picking up jobs and odd jobs after my master's program, trying to figure out exactly what I was going to do since music wasn't in my headspace anymore. After I was working, I began to get my certifications for training, and sure enough, as I started to help people and do it for free, really to just get experience, I found another passion. And I would say that you speak to a lot of people, and having one passion is really hard sometimes. They say like, hey, I used to like things when I was younger, but I didn't really stick with it. I was fortunate enough by the age of 25 to find two things that really drove me to be the best possible. And this latter thing that has stayed on for the last 8 years has been fitness. So once I got my certification, I joined my first commercial gym as a trainer, and I started to work. And what I found was that I was a little different from most people in terms of how I approached my job. I was scholastic, but yet I had a flexibility to be able to give the client what they need. That ended up giving me a reputation of a high earner and high producing personal trainer. Now, nowadays I like to say that I think I'm more than a trainer, but it truly was the thing that set off my journey to fitness and wellness. That thing that got me right here. Who I am, America. Today, I would say in the best words that I'm a service provider. I am here to serve. And when you get me or how you get me, that may depend, because you may get me as a group fitness instructor, or you may get me in a one-on-one capacity, or you may get me as the director of a nonprofit. Who I am, America. I founded Facing It Together, Inc., which is an equitable health solution to bring solutions, mental health amenities, physical health amenities, and nutritional amenities to underserved communities. I built, to me, what was lacking for my life growing up. Who I am, America. What's very particular about Facing It Together, Inc. and my career right now is that the entire pivot came from the death of my sister in the year 2020. In June 2020, my oldest sister, Denise Milhouse, passed away. In doing so, I got the privilege to adopt my niece and nephew, who is now 13 and 10. What this allowed me to do, and what it stressed me to do, and my beautiful wife, is to figure out how do you truly show up and serve people? How do you make and have a sacrificial part of your life, but still make yourself whole? Because I won't lie, in doing so, it truly put me to the brink. I was not sure one day if I could go on, but what I had was a foundation of wellness, a foundation of mental health services and or processes, and a nutritional roadmap to be able to get myself whole again. And I would say between the events from finally finding fitness and today, which is an 8-year gap, a 9-year gap now, actually next month, it truly has given me the opportunity to give and serve people in an efficient and optimal way. And when I say optimal, what I mean is that are we giving these things that everyone needs on every level? So a lot of times we see services, then we see charities, and we see organizations that they give a little. But then you have to jump back and forth, place to place, to be able to really find the formula for your success. And I believe that Facing It Together Inc., that we're really creating an organization that handles a very complicated problem on a multitude of levels. The problem as we see it is the lack of access, inequities in terms of our generational and our social problems. We call it social determinants, whereas where you grew up and because you're in poverty, you'll just have a low chance of living. And to us, that's wrong. And we believe that if we can start facing these problems at the grassroots level or at the beginning level in adolescence and childhood, then we can start changing generations just by giving people the ability to change themselves and the information to always know how to steer their course in the right direction. For that, I'm privileged. For that, I'm grateful to be able to serve people into the capacity that I wish I was served. So sometimes people say like, well, why did you make FIT? And truly, I guess the most honest answer is I created the thing that I wish I had the most when I was growing up. And I hope that people feel the same way. Who I am, America. I am love, I am happiness, and I am Black joy. I am privileged to be able to walk every day in life with the vision and the mission to be able to serve our Black and brown people through health and wellness services. If you find fit to be able to find us, our organization, and help and kind of root us on, please follow us on Instagram at Facing It Together Inc. We know that we won't disappoint. And above all, if you know that you have something and you can do something to save or change a life, I'm asking you today, please do it. My name is Brister Hay IV.